Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. Jake Koenig, Justin Graham here. And it is what feels like a new, fresh week to be a St. Louis City SC fan. We've got a lot to talk about here today, Justin, breaking down the press conference that Lutz and Diego held today, as well as preview what is shaping up to be a firework of a match on Saturday for many different reasons. But before we get there, Justin, how you doing on this fine Thursday evening?
Doing good, Jake. I mean, I've been seeing too much of you recently. This is
Yeah.
our third time recording in 4 days, and then gonna be hanging out all weekend on the first ever Saturday day game. I'm pretty excited. I mean, that was already circled on my calendar, but now for multiple reasons, obviously with the firing, the new style of play, a San Jose team who's leading the MLS in goals for, it is going to be a firework filled Saturday. But Jake, before we get into it, I know you already mentioned it, and before we get into talking about everything else, let's talk about what we usually do. What have you been watching? What have you been up to?
I'm going to make this one pointed today, Justin. I am watching a little bit of squirming going on at the club. I watched the full press conference today. We weren't able to attend. I was going to see if one of us can make it, Justin, or at least join. I had a meeting for my actual job get canceled like right before it. So I was bummed, but I was able to catch it. And those chairs squeaking a little bit, guys looking at each other, waiting for answers. Lutz and Diego, as much as we were speculating what they might feel in this moment, you definitely felt a little bit of pressure, a little bit of tension in the room, a little bit of finger pointing going on, not like blatantly, but they were feeling some questions from media. Some softballs and also some like, what the hell kind of question is that? I will also say, but I'm watching some squirming, Justin.
Dude, before we'll play a clip here, and this is them about why Olaf didn't play the style that they expected. Which is a great question, and I think they had an interesting answer there. But yeah, some of the questions that were coming across, Jake, we were texting, we were like, and I apologize to anybody if they're watching us and this was their question, but one of the guys literally asked them, is it possible to forget how to score? I think he asked Critchley that, but I was just like, what are you looking for him to say there? Like, yep, just brain fog. That's what's got us in the first 15 games this season.
Yeah. Well, roll the clip, Justin. This will be the only clip we play for you. Otherwise, we're going to break down our thoughts and some other bits and pieces they dropped, because I think there was a lot to make of this press conference in the very little that was shared. But go ahead and roll on this one, Justin.
You make such a big deal about your style of play. What was Olaf's explanation for not playing your style of play, especially once you started losing a bunch or not winning a bunch?
Yeah, I mean, go back to that, Ben. We had obviously a lot of talks and a lot of meetings prior, and we discussed that. Diego mentioned it. The coach makes the final decision on match day who plays, and there is discussions before and after the game how we want to play. But every coach wants to get the maximum out at the maximum is results. And if the coach decides that the first 11 he picks or the style he wants to play in this moment, he does it to get wins. And that was the reason why Olaf decided to select the way he selected. I think that's a pretty simple one.
I would also add, like when we've had lots of conversation with him, he was always very clear around that this isn't his natural desired style of play either. The style of play that he played, his teams played before coming here. But he was also pragmatic around trying to find the best way to win games. And that's what he felt was the best way to win games.
All right. Initial insights on that, Justin. I'll let you start off, because that was one of those moments where that was a brief glimpse behind the curtain a little bit to me, because they didn't reveal a whole lot today, as they usually wouldn't in these types of things. Keep it pretty surface level, field the questions, don't go too deep. This one gave me a little bit of a sense, but I want to hear your take first.
So first, Jake, I wish I had more time, and maybe I'll do some more tonight. I want to do some research on what kind of starting 11s he did have prior to this. Was it truly not his style, or did we just kind of say like, hey, we're going to try this new style? Because this, to me, Jake, feels a little bit like they're trying to shift some blame off of them. And like, hey, we did all of our research. We grabbed a guy that was going to do our style of play. We're not trying to shove a guy into a style of play if he doesn't play that way, because then obviously it's not going to work out. And that's what I felt like that answer was a little bit to me, Jake. it is a little odd. And like, yeah, we started off the first 4 games without giving up a goal. So maybe they're like, huh, I know this guy's been a little standoffish, but maybe he actually is right here. And then it fell apart. And I think he is so set in his ways. He's like, I'm going to make it work again. And they're just letting him kind of flop around, and ultimately became time to let him go. But what were your thoughts?
I think I have a little bit different of a take, but there's some similarities I'll draw it. And that was, I think they thought at least that Olaf would come over and champion the same style of play that they had brought into City and as part of our DNA, and that he was doing that already. And then you get to a point in the season. By the way, I don't really think you saw much of that in the opening matches either, even when we weren't, conceding many goals, but we definitely weren't scoring many goals either. And then injuries come in. And I think this is maybe where they're referencing those conversations with him saying, basically, guys, I don't want to play the way that we are going to play in this match. But in my experience, in my opinion, this is the most pragmatic way to approach this game to get 3 points, get a result. Obviously, that didn't work, and it didn't work game after game after game after game. I mean, winless, right? In a streak of games in 11. So I think they're shifting a little bit there. They are saying that he had the say there, and this was him telling them in this stretch that he's going to do whatever he can to get points and get wins, and that might stray away from the DNA. That might stray away from their philosophy, and that makes him even uncomfortable as well. So that's how I read that quote in that part of the press conference.
Big deal about you.
Sorry, I was trying to flip back to it because there was a certain part in there, Jake, that kind of cracked me up too. Is like when people ask them the question, they look at each other.
Yeah,
you want it? Like it's like two best buddies that are in trouble.
Yeah,
and they're like, yeah. Do you like you got this one? I mean, Diego, I understand it is nerve-wracking. You want to make sure you don't use the wrong words at a sense, but they did have a decent amount. Diego was reading off of paper, especially to start to it. So it's a nervous situation, but it is a little bit of an awkward presser. And then Critchley came on, which completely spun it around, and everybody started getting amped up in the comments.
Yeah, I want to get to Critchley. I just want to make a couple quick thematic notes on what Lutz and Diego did to say, because they opened up, Justin. They came in right out of the gates and said, we take full responsibility for what's gone on. We're going to look into this recruitment process that's obviously failed again. Diego even mentioned it was one of the more rigorous ones that he had done in his experience. And you and I, from talking to him, know that he's been in and around quite a few clubs at this point in his life. Looking for a coach that plays in the front foot, brings that intensity, brings the pressing. That was what they called non-negotiables. When they hired Olaf Melberg. Clearly those weren't met. I think that's one of those more objective things they can probably harken back to when it comes to this decision. And then they also mentioned injuries, and they said injuries shouldn't impact your style of play. They put a lot of the injuries and the fortune down to just misfortune and bad luck. Lutz really went out of his way to say, a lot of it, these aren't muscle injuries. These are broken bones or weird things here and there. And I can say to that, sure, there haven't been too many muscle injuries, but I also would say to the ones that are maybe what he's attributing to just misfortune, bad luck, the management, I think of those, we can also look back on and say, was it the best rehabilitation plan? Maybe you rush some guys back. Look at Horn as a good example. I want to still bring back, I still think there is some blame there, but the coaching search, Justin, is where I wanted to kind of center on is I didn't hear the new process today. I heard they are still looking for the same output, like they still have the same priorities in what they're looking for in the future for a coach, but they're not going to rush it. They're going to prioritize style above all else. I'm not sure if they did this time around. I think they did. They really made a lot on the MLS experience, Justin. I heard a lot about that in the beginning. People were like, hey, will you go for an MLS coach? And Lutz basically stopped short of saying that there is no available MLS coach that plays our style of play. Basically said that. He didn't say that verbatim, stopped short of just saying it, which indicates to me that they're going to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. If you try to look around here, it is a shorter list. And I don't want us to try to, I think we've had a couple of good names, especially on when we did our live pod, right when it happened. But it seems like it would be almost, again, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And throwing a coach in there to a system that isn't it. And so, again, we've talked about this. I don't think you need to be rushing this. This is one that a lot of people have said, all right, Lutz, if you're not getting fired, you get one more shot at this, and you do not want to mess this up. And you've seen Taylor Twellman be talking about this a lot. Everybody goes to his Twitter. I was listening to that earlier today. They talked about it last night. Him and Sasha did on Apple. We've now, if we're going to have possibly our 5th coach, which I don't really like the whole like 5 coaches in 3 years thing,
Yeah.
because 2 of them are interim, so I don't really count that.
Yeah.
However, it isn't quite a bit of turnover. They mentioned Cincinnati having the wooden spoon for 3 years in a row. They didn't have 5 coaches in that span. So it is one of those things that let's take the time and get it right this time. And I'm hoping these 2 guys, almost like Dumber and Dumber in this little picture, can put their heads together and figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, because now it's not even like hope anymore. Is that if you don't, I think the next press conference we have, there's only one of them there. You know what I mean? And I'm probably thinking that it's Diego there and whoever the new sporting director is, because I think Lutz is definitely the hotter of the 2 seats at this point. The only other things I want to point out before we get to David Critchley, because that was the most fun I had listening to this press conference, Justin, was talking about Hack. There's a lot of people clamoring for more Hack. Where is he? Why didn't we bring him back? And I liked what they had to say actually about this, because the verbatim I captured was Critchley deserved this chance. He had communicated his desire to get to this point in his career from the moment he set foot into St. Louis City SC. And you also forget that we do so much on the player development side of things. You know, the academy and working our way up and trying to mold and shape kids and boys into men on the pitch and make future first team players. You also do that for coaches, and people don't really think about that as well. We're taking a chance on U16, U17 academy coaches and hoping that we can groom them, especially these younger coaches, into flourishing, budding prospects to go on and helm our first team or even another first team at some point in the future. And this was the plan with David Critchley. It's kind of hit hyperdrive at the moment, but he's, hopped through plenty of hoops and obstacles, and this was always a goal of his. And so I think they say to Hackworth, from what Luce is saying, he's more important in his current role as technical director. It sounds like Lutz named him his right-hand man. They spend hours together every day. He's involved in planning for the squad, obviously executing the vision of the club as well from a sporting perspective. And between his roles there and what it would have taken to maybe hop into an interim first-team job, you couldn't have done both. So Lutz says, okay, I'm going to keep you in this current role and I'll elevate you, or whatever you're going to say. You'll backfill for David in this role while we kind of push David into this and say, hey, give this a go. You're clearly appreciated within the organization. You want to do this. See what you can do. And it's a no pressure for me, Justin. I wanted to ask you about this. David has got to feel like he's playing on house money. Because there's nothing that can go wrong here. We're already at the very bottom of the trench, I would imagine, right? So all we can do is go up from here. He has no first team experience in his past. This is his first real gig. Like, if I'm him, like, there's only positives to come from this experience for him.
I would completely agree. And I think this is a guy that we've talked about. It has been deep in the roots of it. So I'm cool with doing the hiring internally. I did want to get your thoughts on this, Jake. So I'm sorry, I feel like I'm sharing my screen the whole time. But the response here for Taylor Twellman. So Drew Young had a nice tweet. He said, interesting, at Taylor Twellman brings up the question that many fans are thinking, why not Hackworth is your guy right now? Says that should be the first question in the presser. And then Robert responds saying, Lutz said Hack is too valuable to him in the club in the current position and as the director, and then especially with the team nearing a transfer window. But then Taylor Twellman says, how does that make any sense? He's coaching the MLS Next Pro now. So I understand that. Yeah, it might take, or it definitely takes more to coach the first team. However, they're not letting him just stay in the front office. Now he has to go down and coach City 2, travel with them, train with them. So it seems a little imbalanced in that sense. What are your thoughts there?
I don't think the time commitment between being an interim first team head coach and an interim MLS Next Pro coach are probably anywhere close in terms of the time spent doing that. So the time, that's where I would go on that. I'll also say what was not talked about and probably will never be talked about is, if I'm John Hackworth, I don't really want that. I felt, I'm putting on John Hackworth's shoes. I know kind of in the very beginning of getting an interim job, so it's not really what he wants, but in the middle of that all, he did say that he wanted to be, considered. And then, he was probably one of the finalists. We saw those reports come out. He kind of got, I was going to say backstabbed is not right. He got overlooked, and he's obviously, excelling in his current role as technical director. So if I'm him, what do you have to gain from this? Really, like, because you had success in your stint already as an interim manager, and you weren't chosen. And the guy they did choose did nothing did so poorly that he was fired a third of the way into the season. So I'm just kind of like, what do I have to gain at this point? Because they're probably not going to hire me. So why am I going to dump all my time and effort, put my actual career on hold to go take a stab at this again when I was kind of set up to fail in the last go around? Like that'd be my opinion if I was him.
I wouldn't be surprised, Jake. I bet you they asked him first, and then he turned it down. I mean, I would love to. They're never going to come out with that because then it kind of looks kind of crappy internally. Like, why would you ever want to turn that down? But to your point, Jake, I think he did well in the time period that he has. Yeah, I love Aaron's comment. He was hack roof candidate 25,001. Considering we were looking at everybody but him in the first go round, and then in this one, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, "Hey, Hack, we could really use you if you want to try this again." And he probably said something along the lines of like, if you guys absolutely need me, sure, but I think I can do a lot better with where I'm at now. And I'm fine with that. And I think then it's one of those that he's going to be like, hey, I want to bring a guy with me. I would throw someone's name in the hat, though, a successor of mine, a guy that I've worked with since I've been here the whole time. Take Critchley. And then the club probably considered it and went along with it. That's the storyline I like to tell myself in the head, at least.
Yeah, I like that. That's positive, and I don't think we're too far off, to be honest. It doesn't feel out of the realm of possibility. But let's talk about the man of the hour, Justin. David Critchley enters the presser shortly after. They had mentioned him towards the end, saying he just jumped right into it this week, the last couple of days. Didn't want him to feel pressure. They want him to keep developing. The players believe in him. Obviously, the staff believe in him. And he enters, sits on the seat, and I think I fell in love. I don't think that, again, I'm not going to say that he's going to be the guy, in the long-term future. But I like where his mind's at. And by the way, it's so easy to say all the right things in these meetings. I'll, hold some judgment until we can at least see his first match in charge. But color me surprised and happy with what he was able to say during this press conference, because the mentality that he was kind of putting out into the ether of what he wants this team to be, he was saying, kind of all the same tunes we heard about City 2.0, sorry, and what they wanted that to be: aggressive without the ball, more quality in the ball, still focusing on direct attacks, bringing tons of intensity, bringing more control into the games and being able to suffocate opponents in their own half. Again, things we haven't really seen ever either, or haven't seen in a long time. Counter press on turnovers, paying attention to rest defense. The one quote I wanted to rip here, Justin, was the how we attack is how we defend, and how we defend is how we attack. Still trying to think of what I exactly think of what he means there, but I think it's just balance. Like, you approach things with the same intensity on both sides of the pitch. You take them equally as seriously, and you do not let any teams on offense or defense have an easy go at you. But I liked it, Justin. He felt beyond his years in terms of maturity. And again, we'll see the sporting side, at least the start of it on Saturday. But what were your impressions of David Critchley taking the seat for his first presser?
I thought he did a great job. Like you said, it's probably easy to say what you're supposed to say. However, I think he was very short and to the point, and he just said what he wanted to say, and you could feel it with that. And so, Jake, I want to touch on that with how you defend is how you attack, and how you attack is how you defend. He made a couple small points to it, and I'm trying to put it together in my mind as well. I really do think that it's going to be pointed pressing or pointed attacking. So when we're on defense, it's not just high press the entire time, because you can't sustain that. I think it's going to be, hey, when we go, we're going to go hard for this minute, win the ball back, recirculate it. But then when we get the ball offensively, if we find our chance, we're going to go hard for that minute as well. And I think that's what he was talking about. He was talking about small segments of the game. And that's what I really would like to see with this team, is that he mentioned, he's like, if you lose the ball in a certain place, we're going to design our defense, our rest defense. He mentioned that quite a bit. That David Gotts actually mentioned when we were talking about Josh Arrow. The rest defense is something they're going to be working on, because that is huge when it comes to turning the ball over, or also being in the right position for when we are pressing. So your offense is your attack, because if we're doing it offensively and we turn it over, we have to be pre-positioned already to be in a good spot and not have to be chasing guys. And then also, if we are pressing them, we have to be able to make sure that whoever wins the ball there has an outlet pass. And I think that's what he's trying to look for in this. And Jake, I think the answer to the second question that he had was phenomenal. I think it's what I wanted to hear. And honestly, it felt like it was true coming from him, talking about he wants to play in an exciting style, and he also wants to build relationships with the players. And he said that he's already been working on both in his first 2 days, and I truly believe this guy.
Yeah, it's almost like, when they make trades or they make deals, and, sometimes you just got to change the environment for people. I think even though the environment's not changing, the coach is changing, which does create a different environment for the players. And for the first team specifically, I think it's a little bit of a reset on the guys that were maybe fringe or not seeing as many minutes as they would like to. Everyone's going to get their fair shake now. It sounded like he's playing very democratic in how he's going to dole out minutes with this team and really get them emotionally invested in this team. And so we talk about the locker room. Carnell had it, then lost it. Olaf, I don't even know if you can make a judgment call. I think you've said it before, Justin. He never really even had it, and he probably couldn't really establish it with the time that he had here. So with Critchley putting that as top of a priority, especially in a couple days in, already building on a foundation, because he sees these guys all the time. Many of them he's coached directly already this season. So I love hearing him say that, again, ticking all the right boxes. And we will reserve the sporting side and opinion, obviously, until we get to Saturday. But Justin, very, very shallow of me, but I'm not going to lie. When I heard him take the seat and begin the press conference, I'm just like, there's some part of me, just because I watch a lot of European soccer, that like makes me just a wee bit more comfortable because he speaks with the English accent. I don't know. I know it's just me. I know that's the most shallow thing of all time, but hearing him take these questions and he's got that, it's different. And I feel like I'm watching or hearing something else overseas when I'm listening to him. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if anyone felt that way. Do not feel shame if you do. I know that is super shallow, but you know what I mean? It kind of has a different sort of carry to what he's delivering.
I think that's maybe where I was going with Jake. I don't know. I don't feel like we're going to win more games because
No.
I've got a better accent now, and I know you're not saying that. But I do think that when he was very direct and to the point, it's a different culture. It's not an American that is rambling and trying to get their thoughts out. It's this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I appreciate about it.
Oh, and by the way, I saw that you posted that comment from Jonathan. Jonathan, that is super cool that he shook all the hands of every member of the media there. Again, you can tell that he cares. We knew that Olaf didn't really care about media and really kind of shirked a lot of those responsibilities outside of those that he was required to do. And this guy, is just going to embrace it, live and breathe it. He's dedicated already so much time to this club, and I know it's going to become multiplied over his tenure as caretaker manager. But Justin, that was our What Are You Watching? Extrapolating basically all of the press conference because there was so much to make of that. What have you been watching, Justin? Obviously you watched that with me, but what else?
Jake, I've been watching what is coming up on our schedule, and I'm here to bring even a little bit more hopium to the pod after talking about Critchley. So our next 8 games, let's look at this stretch and what we're going to be dealing with. The next 3 games specifically are against teams that are an average of 20th in the Supporter Shield. That's San Jose, Portland, and LA Galaxy. Then we do have a tough one against number 7 Orlando, but it's at Energizer Park and it's on 11 days rest. So we're talking about it right now. That's well over a month away from now. So anybody that's dealing with a longer term injury gives them time then. And anybody that picks up a knock in those 3 games prior has 11 days to rest. Then Jake, then the last 4 in that 8-game stretch are against teams that again average 20th in the Supporter Shield. That's Houston, RSL, Portland again, and Dallas. We're home for half of those, and only 2 of them are a back-to-back away games. And so I really do think that during this stretch, that'll be 8 games, Jake, 24 possible points. We currently have 11 points through 15 games. Historically, we have always talked about it. You would need 45 points to get you into the playoffs. Kind of give and take now when we're adding teams. That means we need 34 points out of the remaining 57 points to make the playoffs. About 60% of them. So in this stretch, if you apply that same 60%, we would need 14 out of the 24 points. Question for you, looping in with underdog. 14 points in 18 games. Realistically, it would be 4 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. If I set the higher or lower at 13.5 points, what would you be taking over these next 8 games for City?
Dude, it is so hard because there's the Critchley effect and there's also what looks to be a resolving injury crisis right now. If you could just give me to Saturday to see who is actually healthy enough to play minutes, I would really feel better about this. But because I'm biased and I'm a puppy dog that just keeps coming back for more, I'm going to slam the higher on that for sure.
I think the higher, I was like, 14 points out of 24. I'll take the higher on that. When I listed it out, I'm like, all right, you would then need 4 wins and 2 draws with only 2 losses. It's a tough one. And regardless of who you're playing in the MLS, it's anybody's game any day. But yeah, you know that I don't think I've ever put an entry in on the lower side for anything.
No,
unless it's goals allowed by Roman Berkey. So
right.
I'm absolutely going on the higher of the points during that time.
I love it. And so, we finish off here with Critchley. He's here to provide a new foundation for St. Louis City. And the foundation provider for me on the home front is Hoffman Brothers, our presenting sponsor for 2025 of ball watching. I've actually got Hoffman Brothers coming out this coming Tuesday to install 2 different C-type items that are applied to an HVAC. I have no idea how to pronounce them, or I can't remember what they are, but they are going to come over on Tuesday and install them. So I have good cooling for the entire summer on my main floor, which is where both of my kids will be once we have our second. So it's going to be good to get out ahead of that, make sure that we're squared away, because I think next week, Justin, it's going to creep up into the 90s. I'm going to be on top of it thanks to Hoffman Brothers. So make sure that you're on top of everything when it comes to the home front. Anything under the roof you might have concerns, questions, any sort of feelings about, make sure you reach out to Hoffman Brothers, our friends at 314-664-3011, or visit them online at hoffmanbros.com. Except if you're a San Jose fan, don't reach out to Hoffman Brothers.
Don't do that. You can just reach out to us, and we'll refer you and try to help you guys out, because we're always happy to help. But Jake, you know what? I'm just going to bring us right into my other favorite sponsor as well, because Aaron said Busch lattes are going to be flowing at the park. You know where else they're going to be flowing? At the pitch. Get to the pitch. They're opening up early on Saturday because it's a 1:30 start. They're opening up at 10:30. We will be there as well. You know that we're going to be enjoying it. We're doing our usual giveaway. We're back, Jake. $50 gift card and free beers. So if you show up and you come up to us, say, I love the pitch, we'll have a couple buckets of beers and neutrals. If you're the first person to say it, we will give you that $50 gift card and a free drink. And if you're the second person to say it to us, Jake, they're giving away a pitch jersey that we will be giving out as well. So if you're first or second, you'll get a $50 gift card and a jersey. Everybody else, I don't care if you're the 50th, you can get a free beer on us. So get to the pitch before the game, during, and after on this beautiful Saturday.
That's amazing. What a deal. Yeah, I can't wait to be there and basking in hopefully some summer sun, and enjoying some of this as we get our first Saturday day game. It's gonna be fantastic. And the spectacle, David Critchley is one thing, and turning a new page is one thing, but also this fixture has been very positive for us in our short time as a franchise, with 2023 having a 3-0 dub at home, a 2-1 win away. In 2024, even despite all of our struggles, a 2-0 W at home and a 2-1 win away. So you're doing the math there. We have not lost. We have not dropped a single point to San Jose yet in the regular season. And the last one I want to draw back to, we've already said it before, but when we relieved Carnell on July 1st last year, the next game was a couple days later with Hack taking the interim call, and we won at home. And we generated a ton of expected goals in that match. We only won 2-0, but Leuven and Kojima scored. I was looking at the 11, Justin. Hold on. I got to show you this because it was absurd, the 11 that actually played in that game. So I won't show you, but I'll tell you. Berkey in a back four of Totland, Durkin, Tim Parker, Jay Reed. In the midfield, Blum, Johnny Klein, Leuven. And then on the forward line, Kojima, Thor, and Indy. My word, the amount of transition that has happened for us in a short year span, it's unbelievable.
That's Totland, Berkey, Leuven, and Durkin. Or the four that are actually still even, I guess Jay Reed's still the team, so 5. The other 6 are gone. In a year span. That's insane.
It is crazy. It's crazy. So historically, it's been a good fixture for us. We have the upper hand, but I will say San Jose is going to bring a challenge to this match. And when I said fireworks, I think I'm thinking on the goals front, and I'll tell you why in a second. But San Jose currently sitting 7th in the West on 22 points, 6-6-4 win-loss draw, 33 goals for, the best in MLS. 26 goals against, 8th worst in MLS, and you're kind of getting where I'm going here. 3rd worst in the West. So they get a +7 goal differential overall. Away, nothing to write home about. 2-3-1 record overall. They've got some meaningful results. I would say they did beat Sporting away. They had close games against LAFC 2-1 and Columbus 2-1 away, and they knocked off Colorado 2-0 on the road. The most recent came last night, Wednesday, against LA Galaxy in a 1-0 win, a really gutsy win for San Jose. The Galaxy put up a ton of expected goals, and they just couldn't find the back of the net. Now they have, Justin, they've been kind of waiting for the health of guys like Payne still to come back with Peck, and you're still really waiting on Pooch, but the Galaxy just feel snake bitten this season. If you all think you have it down bad, they have a rough go of a season so far. But San Jose is finding ways in these games. They are scoring at will.
It's pretty insane. I mean, we'll talk on the guys that are doing it for them and some injuries. But first, how are they getting that with their formation as well. The Earthquakes have pretty much adopted what would be similar to what we would think we were, and so we might match up with more of a flexible attacking formation. They often transition from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-2-2-2 during matches. This is really a shift to give them greater central presence and also more fluidity in their attack. And so if you think about that, once you have these guys, if you're shifting positions, so are the defenders, and creating holes and trying to find those passing lines and triangles to break those lines defensively. So I think that's going to be one that we really need to focus on, Jake, because this is happening mid-game. We might do a lot of research and help, but I feel like we tend to have some ball watching issues. Never an issue to have a ball watching, but during the games, we let guys slip between lines. We saw it in the last game with Yarrow as well. If we're not keeping that line between our back line and those holding defenders or holding midfielders, that's where they could try to slide in and live. And that's like literally passing to the short corner in a basketball game. Once they find that, it's wide open and the floodgates are open and they're coming right down our throat.
And they've got that transition too, as well as a threat on the forward side. Espinoza is a special player. We'll talk about his stats coming up in a second, but they are the number one team in MLS on expected goals this season. Also number one in goals for. So they are doing it on the offensive front. Number 13 away, though. So there is a drop-off, obviously, when they head on the road, which a lot of teams have a similar thing like that. But when you think about the flip side, the expected goals against, now they're bottom 10 in the expected goals against, and they're only 5 teams have conceded more goals than them overall in the league. So there's, again, a tale of two sort of sides of the spectrum for San Jose. They can score a lot, but a really leaky defense as well. And even when you parse a little bit deeper into like the halves, for example, I found that they are number 3 in the first half overall in MLS based on points collected. If the whistle just blew dead right there, the game was over. They are a first half team. They drop off to number 17 in the league in the second half. So they put goals in, they close teams out in the first half. So you got to be on the lookout for that. If you're St. Louis City, they're going to try to come out swinging. You cannot allow them to get out too far ahead in that first half.
And I think that's going to be it's one of my goals to the game. We'll come back to everything else, but one of my goals to the game, Jake, is score first. Just give us something to root for. But now thinking about this, it might be a little bit tricky for us. And I don't know, maybe it's like riding a bike, but we've been playing it and probably practicing in this formation of a back 5. It seems like we're going to be going back to a back 4. Is that going to throw us off and have one mistake that could cost us early on? I truly hope not. But that kind of thought process just crept into my mind, and I want to make sure I said it.
Yeah. And what to look out, Justin, for in the San Jose team? We've already talked about some of it, but midfield, they've shown a little bit of susceptibility in central midfield. I think we have a lot of muscle in midfield if we start, with a tandem like Leuven and Durkin together. So if we can do that and disrupt that buildup, I think we'll take, that off the table for them, or at least sometimes, and make them rely on transitions for a lot of their threat. They're also a good set piece team as well. Espinoza, like I said, can do it on the transition, can also whip in some very proficient, very, very strong set pieces. You've got to not concede cheap corners, cheap free kicks to them and give them opportunities that way. But for me, Justin, I've talked about transition. You can't let them get into a rhythm. You can't let them get into one of those things where it's wave after wave of crashing attacks on our net. You've got to do your best to disrupt them and kind of disrupt the rhythm of the game, the fluidity of the game. Because if you can do that, you'll get in their heads, you kind of throw them off the scent and make sure you're kind of hitting reset every couple of minutes here. And so we can kind of get a foothold and control the game like Critchley has mentioned wanting to do.
And the guys that you would typically have to be worried about, there is one major one that we do not. So I'm going to jump to injuries first, Jake, then we'll go back to the guys that you do need to watch. But Chico Arango had a left hamstring injury back in May 15th versus Miami. He's going to be out more than likely. Acquired from Real Salt Lake on a significant deal. He brings high scoring rate with 32 goals and 54 appearances for RSL before his move. His partnership with Josef Martinez up top, who we'll touch on, has just been insane. And almost and you throw that with Espinoza, it is a 3-headed monster. But Arango has 9 of their goals, so 9 of their 33 with 2 assists. He has the 12th most XG in the MLS. So missing that guy is going to be absolutely huge for them. And you saw in the game, last night, that they struggled in the LA game. I know it was late for them and only 1 goal. I think they only put together like an XG like 1.06. So without him, this is going to be a completely different offense.
No, I would agree. And they're going to be probably relying a lot more on his partner, typically, of Josef Martinez, who's a former MLS MVP, only a couple years ago now. And he's become that central figure in their attack. He's got 116 goals and 20 assists across 184 MLS appearances. And this season, 6 goals, 1 assist, the 13th most XG generated in MLS. So look for him to be probably their most dangerous player in terms of a clinicality type nature. But my eyes go to Christian Espinoza. I've already been singing his praises. He is their creative force. He makes that team tick, usually from the right side of the field in the right winger or right midfield type spot. He is right now on 4 goals, and he leads the MLS in assists with 8. Kind of sneakily, Justin, probably if he keeps that production up, which they don't show signs of slowing down this offense, he could maybe creep into the MVP picture, at least for a consideration, given those assist numbers. They're crazy with 8 assists, also leads the league in key passes as well with 52, 7 more than the nearest competitor in Albert Rusnak in Seattle with second. So I'm watching Christian Espinoza. Obviously, the star power, you think about Joseph Martinez and Chicho Arango, who we won't be seeing here, but Espinoza seems to be that Hartel sort of equivalent for them, but he's got goals in his locker as well.
And Jake, I do want to bring this in because I love when we have a little bit of a St. Louis connection. I'm going to share my screen on this Instagram post. This is awesome. When you go back and look at this and you see Max Floriani guarding Messi here. So for everybody that's not watching or not being able to see us on YouTube, we have Max Floriani, who played at SLU, and the caption here from SLU is Billiken Soccer Camp to SLU Men's Soccer to the 2025 MLS Super Draft, where he was the 2nd overall pick, to then guarding Messi in a game. So he's going to be one of their defenders in this game, as long as he's not injured, but it does not look to be. He's going to be a guy that I would love to see at City Park.
And I would not be shocked to see him get some minutes in this one. Maybe not starting, but he got minutes last night as well. Yeah, you got to love Bills. Bills represent. I also could see Betcher, but I'm spoiling the show here, Justin. We are going to roll into our Hoffman Brothers starting 11 and maybe what could be a new formation here, but let's roll into it. So, Justin, we didn't talk about it before, but I think we're officially pivoting off of the back 3, back 5, because Critchley said as much in the press conference today. He mentioned, that pretty straightforward seems to be where he wants to play with this team, going back to a back 4. But I'll hit pause and also say that does not mean that our defense is solved. It does not mean that we're going to be so much better off, because there are still a lot of lingering injury concerns. So actually, really quick, Justin, before we go back to that, the updates across that front is Leuven's in full training. I will say what he said in an interview, or at least a piece that I saw from Tom Timmerman, is he's day-to-day. With his whole family situation, which he will share more on the future, he said, he's already missed 10 games this season. You can't realistically hold your hat on Leuven and say you can count on him for the game. Because again, he can get a call, it sounds like, and at a moment's notice have to go do something in priorities him, which all respect, you got to go do that. But Leuven, if everything perfect, you'd probably expect to crack into the 11 for this one. Totland, we heard, is in full training as well. Again, we've already broken him after returning him to the bench and then having his injury get aggravated and have missed more time with him. He hasn't appeared for us, Justin, since before we began the 11-game winless streak on March 15th, which is years ago now. Alm is in full training. Morales in full training. Apparently Kessler is as well, even though later June was when we were expecting him, at least on FOTMOB per his injury recovery. So I think the biggest doubts you can think of are Horn and Nilsson, which are still 2 painful ones, especially Horn. But what do you think here, Justin? Let's start in the back. If you're going back to a 4, what would you roll out with if you're David Critchley in this, considering the availability of some of your players?
Yeah, so I think you're going to Wallem, just playing left back, knowing that Horn is for sure out. I think that he just is automatically going in there. Then you get to the center backs, and we've talked about this. So you said Kessler is back in full training, apparently. Don't know if you just throw him straight into a full 90.
Yeah.
Nilsson is not ready. So then you're looking at Yarrow and Hebert and Baumgartel, which then you mentioned Hebert was training inside today, is what I heard. So there you go. You're stuck with Yarrow and Baumgartel. And that's what I would throw, and that's what I would expect at those center backs. I do not like having Yarrow there, but, maybe he's going to have a little bit of a different form playing underneath the Critchley, a guy that he's been around ever since we began this club. So I would like to see there. And then, honestly, Jake, I know it might be a little bit of a stretch, but just give me Totland. I know I think that one's a little bit different than Kessler because he's had such a long time to turn it around. I would love to see him there at right back. If not, you're going to probably see Watts or Zielinski.
Yeah, or I'll offer you even more alternatives to muddy the waters here. At center back, if you again, we know how exposed Yaro's been, especially in this back three. I don't think that just remarkably changes with the back four either. So the only other alternatives you have in the center back position is you can go to Winsel, who you know that Critchley has coached a lot. Maybe he has an affinity for him. Maybe he wants to give him a go. Maybe he feels like he's been overlooked. I doubt that. You could also go to JGR if you think that he's ready to take it a back four. I don't think you'll do that. Those are both pretty risky moves, even despite the shortcomings of Josh Yaro that we've pointed out before. So at right, the only other thing I was going to say, Justin, as an alternative that I would feel the most comfortable about, even over Watts and Zelensky, is bringing Wallum to the right and putting Reed on the left. And you know Reed's healthy now. He's been playing minutes here and there. Nothing that's been remarkably impressive, by the way. But would I trust those left and right backs over any one of Watts or Zelensky on the right back side? Maybe.
I think you know what I'm gonna lock this in, Jake. I'm gonna go Wallum, Yarrow, Baumgartel, Zelensky. I think that is a true one because I think he knows Zelensky, and I really do think that that's a guy that is fit and ready to go, and also just fits. He's a right back, so play our right back. So that's what I'm gonna go with the back line. Then I'm gonna go two in front of them, and I'm gonna go with Dirk and Leuven. And I just really hope that Leuven is gonna be around. Just one for my sake, and two more than my sake, his sake, because that's a guy that has just been working his tail off. Played a full 90 for City too, so you know that he's going to be match fit, and I just hope he's going to be available and around.
I think I'm going to take the same mindset on Leuven as we said with Nilsson a couple weeks ago, Justin. If he is available now with this whole situation, got to play him. You got to start him because you don't know when he will exit again, and we need to suck every drop of value out of him, given how crucial he is to this team. So I agree. Dirk and Leuven in those holding midfield positions. Leuven probably shifting up a little bit more. Dirk and probably staying home a little bit more. How about we're going with a three behind, obviously, the big man. We're going to start Klaus up top for this one. But I went out and I have removed Teuscher from this lineup here, Justin. I don't think a 4-2-3-1 necessarily right at this point in the season, knowing how he's played, I think I just would rather have different players in that three. So my three that are sitting beneath Klaus and ahead of Dirk and Leuven in this match are Celio. Celio, go out, get some chalk in the boots, run that left channel like your life depends on it, and just make guys look stupid in and down that left channel. Hartel, create. You don't have defensive responsibility that you did have in this back three, back five system. We have Durkin and Leuven that are sitting behind you. Leuven can progress the ball. Unless he's pressed out of the game, sometimes you will maybe drop back Hartel, but still, go free up some space. Go look for the ball. Go connect the lines. Go do anything and free yourself of a lot of that burden that he was carrying underneath Olaf Melberg. And on the right, I'm bringing in Simon Betcher on this one. And it's not because I think it's proven to work or should work or it has to work. It's that I feel like he's hungry. He's been missing some great chances this season, but he's been finding himself some great chances this season. He's due. And I know that him and Klaus have like that semblance of a Nico Klaus relationship. At least they act like it, off the field, and they're walking in together pregame onto the pitch. So I want to see that come to life. And frankly, I just have not been that impressed with what Teuscher's offered, especially in progression. There's been one game I feel like where I've seen a little bit more from him, but unless we're in the box, I just feel like he goes missing sometimes.
Yeah, I love Betcher, and I don't think if you're Critchley, I think you rock the boat a little bit, but I don't think you rock it too much. And I think you throw the best 11 out there. And right now, I understand Teuscher has not been playing as hot. I would rather, I think, and not rather, I think what I would expect is going to go Celio, Hartel, Teuscher with Klaus up top, and then I think we don't hesitate to make subs. We don't have to wait until a certain minute mark. If you see something, you make it. I trust this guy's judgment. He knows these guys. If you see that Simon Betcher can make a difference in this game, or Silva can make a difference in this game, throw him out there. Don't wait to the 65th or the 70th, whatever we've always been doing. Just do it. But that's what I would say on the front four is you're going to go Klaus up top with Celio, Hartel, and Teuscher underneath him.
And the bench, Justin, I like the bench just looks a hell of a lot better than it has with these injuries coming back too, right? Because now you have, one of Betcher or Teuscher per our 211s on the bench to come on. You have still Tomas Ostrak to come on, give Leuven some legs if he starts losing it, or if you need to get, maybe the Durkin presence isn't needed at that point in the game, you bring on Ostrak to help progress. You've got Jade Reed to help maybe fill on either side of the flanks on the left back, right back if you need help there. You've got Silva as well. You've got Morales who's back. You've got Alm who's back. So the options have almost multiplied. And I'm not ready to put my eggs all in that basket either. But the only way to start getting this team rotated and dangerous again is to show that you can carry a threat off the bench. And these guys, you got to think, are going to be hungry because fresh coach, the bell's been rung. If I can go out and do a job, even off the bench, he's going to notice that. And he's going to take that. And he's going to maybe give me more minutes in the future because we're starting today, right? We're starting that match. It's the first match where I can actually go out, impress, and do everything I can to make a mark on Coach Critchley.
I'm very excited for the bench. So the amount of attackers that you've mentioned, I just cannot wait also for our defense to then also have that same depth. And that's why people have been saying, and I don't agree with what Taylor Schwellman said on Apple. I'll find that clip. Did you see that he was like, if you threw Pep on this team, he said they couldn't win the West. And maybe he's saying with where we're at right now, and that's what I'm hoping with 11 points in 15 games, fine. If you said that before the season, no one was complaining about the depth or this team and the actual players when the season started.
Yeah.
We're now complaining about it because we're not doing as well. So I really don't think that it's the players' fault, or sorry, the team that we've constructed around. And I'm going back to this because I really think that Lutz has a decent team that we can play with. We just haven't had the injuries. We haven't had the right coach. But now that we're starting to see some healthiness, we've got a new coach in there. I think you're going to win the locker room back.
Yeah.
Just on the upside from there. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant. But Jake,
no.
What's your goal for the game and what is your prediction for the game?
I'll finish off what you were just saying, Justin. I agree. You're going to learn. I mean, they're going to get healthy and we're going to learn if the roster is good enough to compete at a level we want them to. But to the goals, I've got my specific one for this one. And I already mentioned we could go down in this match. And we know they like to score a lot of goals. We know the first half especially is when those tend to kind of aggregate. If we concede, do not capitulate. And that also goes for fans as well. I don't want to hear groans and moans if we go down in this game. You cannot give the game up once you hit the deck for the first time. My challenge to the team is, even if that happens, get up. Because if you do concede and you put your head down, this team will make you pay. They'll score in clusters. They do it often in these matches where it's like goal, 3 minutes later, goal, 7 minutes later, goal. That's San Jose's bread and butter. You cannot make it easy for them. So if it happens, shake it off, pick yourself up, dust yourself off. This is a 90-minute match and make them earn it. That is my goal for the game.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. When you typed that word in there, I thought you spelled it wrong. So I was waiting for us to get to this part of the segment. Never heard of the word capitulate. Just had Google it as well. Nice word. I'm proud of you. My goal for this game is for us to score first. I know I've said that plenty of times, but here's this. I got a little background on this one. One, give us something to root for because, God, if Rockin' City Park, 1:30 on a Saturday, 80 degrees outside, new coach bump, all this, it would take it would take the wind out of our sails immediately if we let them score first. And also, I think if we score first, this team can be immediately turned off because they're playing on short rest. They were just in LA last night. The game was going to 11 p.m. our time. And then they're going to be coming here on Saturday and playing at 11:30 a.m. their time. And that is a very short window to be playing that late out there and then this early here. So I think this is one that we can hop on them right from the start and get the fans behind them.
You know, I looked at their schedule, Justin. So they were in LA last night, Wednesday. They're here on Saturday. They go to Portland next Saturday. They go to Dallas the following Thursday or Wednesday night. So they are on the road for the next 4 matches. They're going to take these things seriously. But it also is like, if you can put them away early, they might shut up shop and say, you know what? Lick our wounds, we'll go home and get the next one. We'll see you again.
If we score first, they capitulate.
Maybe I would like to see. I mean, that's the thing is this team is you got to realize they might score on you, but they can equally also concede. So that's where the game should not be over at any point in the match for either team, right? So this is going to be an exciting one. I think there's going to be a lot of goals in this one. So I'll go to my predictions. I've got 3-2 dub on the radar for this one. It's going to be a goal fest. We've seen the goals in the whole history of this matchup with at least 2, I believe, in every single time that we've met. We've scored specifically at least 2 as well every time that we've met. And those times have come and gone, right? We're in a new era now, but we're hoping we're on the other end of a bad, old era and wanted to turn a page now with David Critchley. So I've got a 3-2 gutsy, who could score more goals win on the Bucks or City.
I like that. And I'm going to go a little bit even more gutsier, Jake. I'm going with a 3-1 dub. And here we go again. Here's why. Yeah, we've only scored 3 goals once this season. Fine. I don't care. New coach bump. Got to always add something in there for that. And then also, we already talked about their short rest. They're also missing the man who has scored almost a third of their goals in Chicho Arango. And they also only put up an XG of 1.07 against the LA Galaxy last night with only 1 goal scored. This worst team in the MLS, and they were struggling up there with missing him. So I think this is one that, Jake, that to your point, short rest, these guys are tired. They're probably like, all right, we lose 1 to a team that we probably should beat. Fine, let's go focus on the next week. And I would love for us to hop on it early. So I'm going to go with 3 goals, just like you. But I'm saying that Roman Berkey is only letting 1 between the sticks.
Yeah, and I'm open. Just let's talk about the Berkey really quick second of it all too. Is we're gonna need him in this stretch. Like it's gonna get a little bit of it's gonna get a little dicey, not just in this game, but just this season as things kind of change and the ground's sort of shaking on how Critchley, implements the basics right back into our DNA and what we want to be on the field as a team. There's gonna be some shaky moments, definitely. I'm not expecting perfection, especially from game 1 here from David and co. So Berkey, you're going to need a big performance out of in this match. We didn't even talk about it at all, Justin, but this might need to be one of those games of the season that are just stolen outright by your man between the pipes. I mean, I think Berkey's going to need to have probably 1 to 2 massive saves in this game, and otherwise commanding the box, cutting out those transitions, those long balls, and fielding anything in his box on set pieces and springing us out onto the counter and the transition. So big game, I think, ahead for Berkey.
Yeah, because I do think that we're going to end up having at least 1 mistake, Jake, from, like I said, not playing this formation all season. And now we're trying to play it in the last 3 days. Yeah, it's like riding a bike. You're probably going to get used to it, but there is going to be some sort of miscommunication that is going to let them come right down our throats. And we're going to need one of those just infamous kick saves from him or a diving save, anything, just push it up over the bar. So he's going to be a massissive piece in this. And I'm very excited to watch him.
I am too, man. I am too. Well, I think that about does it for the show, Justin. I think we covered a lot of the I don't think there was too many questions we got on the actual stream itself. I don't see anything in Instagram we haven't already covered either. So, I mean, I think that's really it. I think I'm going in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm excited for this one. Obviously, going to have a couple drinks as well as we tailgate for our first ever Saturday day game. Hoping the weather also has a factor to play here, a nice positive factor. Do we have Doppler meteorologist Justin Graham yet?
Yeah, so it's going to be absolutely sunny and beautiful. I've got on Apple a high of 82, but the weather app high of 87. So it actually might be a little warm out there, but I don't care. This is exciting stuff. I'll absolutely take it, especially with some of this rain that we've had. But Jake, the other Doppler I was looking at, I'm absolutely hammering City over 1.5 goals at minus 135. That line is already creeping up. We were just talking about that in the green room. It's at 150, minus 150 now. So that is something that new coach bump. We're scoring at least 2 goals. That was my go-to for us when we were talking about the first 2 seasons, and I hammered it already again.
Yeah, and we'll be creating our underdog entry as well with some of the – it'll be probably hard because I'm sure there'll be some turnover in the 11, and sometimes the player entries kind of get a little bit tricky there when those 11s turn over as much as they do. But we'll have an entry that you all can ride along with, and if you haven't already signed up using Underdog, using our code, BALLWATCHING, and make sure that you can get some of that free bonus cash in. If you play now in Missouri, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit for any of those new customers. Still having fun on the app. Underdog is a great place to play these fantasy games and be able to put a little more on the boys in the Forever City Red kits as they go out and look to put a good foot forward in 2025 and start off the Critchley era with a bang. So looking forward to it, Justin. We'll see everyone on Saturday. Stop by the pitch. Make sure you say hi to us. Grab a free beer, courtesy of the Ball Watching boys. And let's look forward to what hopefully becomes a nice City dub. All for City.
All for City.